This weekend's Texas Pro wrapped up, and it was one of the most interesting shows of the season, particularly because of the battle for first between Patrick Moore and Regan Grimes. Regan was the favorite going into the show, but Patrick pulled off the upset with an incredible showing. Now this could have gone either way, to say the least. I don't think Regan was off or anything, and I've also seen plenty of people who had Regan as the winner. At the same time, people are obviously happy for Patrick. He's been coming a long way, and he definitely deserves a bit of glory. This was actually his 9th show of 2026, which has to be some kind of record, and at least when it comes to consistency, he definitely deserves his flowers. He brought his best physique since 2019, but I also think Regan may have been overlooked here. So that's what we're going to do in this video. Review this top 2 call-out and see if there is actually a case to be made that Regan was robbed of his Olympia qualification at this show. Front double biceps, and both of them are aesthetic in their own way, but when it comes to having a small waist and an incredible X-frame, Patrick is definitely more impressive. Now, Regan is carrying more mass obviously, but at least when it comes to this pose, most of that seems to be in the torso and midsection region, but of course in the lower body as well. I have Patrick winning the arms and the upper body overall. Conditioning wise, there's not much difference. Maybe Patrick is a bit drier, but it's debatable. Now if you know me, you know I'm into mass more than aesthetics, and if this was me judging, maybe I could have gone with Regan. But I perfectly understand the argument for Patrick when it comes to this pose. His upper body superiority is pretty obvious, so the front double biceps would go to Patrick. Front lat spread is next, and I'm noticing something both in the footage we're using and in these clearer pictures. Regan may have been a bit too relaxed through the core. No big issue really, but compared to someone like Patrick, it does stand out a bit. Now yet again, Regan is carrying more mass, but Patrick has a so much better frame with a better shoulder to waist ratio. And again, personally I prefer Regan's body type more, but for this particular comparison I have Patrick winning again. His taper is better and Regan's midsection seems a bit too relaxed. So far it's pretty close between them. Regan is definitely the bigger bodybuilder, conditioning is similar, but coming out of the first 2 poses, I give Patrick the slight edge mostly because of the superior frame and better stomach control. Again, it's not an issue for Regan by itself, but it definitely becomes a disadvantage when he's standing next to someone like Patrick. Side chest is next, and one thing is for sure. Regan is the bigger guy, especially downstairs in this pose, but where Patrick is better is through the arms and shoulders. When it comes to the chest, both could be better. Now for the ideal look in this pose, if only Regan was pulling his right elbow down more, similar to Patrick despite not having the most impressive outer arms, I think I would prefer his overall look. But once again, Patrick does enough here to justify why he would win the shot, winning the upper body in my opinion. However, the lower body from the side, Regan is even more dominant than from the front, and combined with the fact that he is taller and bigger overall, I wouldn't be surprised if some people gave him this pose. Personally, I think it's close, but I'm going with Patrick again. Back double biceps, and this is Regan's territory, who has some of the best back genetics in today's bodybuilding. But as we can notice, even though his back is incredibly complete, and his lower lats are some of the best in the world, it's still pretty close in terms of overall back development. Patrick has really brought his back up and actually wins the lat width aspect here. Patrick is also better through the arms, but there's nothing there to really decide the comparison. Lower body, I gotta give it to Regan. Those hamstrings are really great, and I'm actually a bit upset about Regan having this huge potential and not seeming to surpass a certain ceiling. Given his unique qualities, I really think he could battle for the Olympia title. His arms are still pretty weak, but I've seen way weaker arms winning Olympias, so that's that. Back to this comparison, even though Patrick has the better taper, the back double biceps has to go to Regan, who overall still has the more complete back and also the better lower body. Back lat spread is next, and Regan's back genetics come into full play here. I believe when it comes to the actual backs, he leaves no room for interpretation anymore. His back is bigger, wider and thicker. Patrick's back is still impressive and probably underrated in today's bodybuilding, but it's not close to challenging Regan here. Lower body Regan is better as well, even though his hamstrings aren't as flexed as they were in the previous pose. All in all, Regan Grimes wins both back poses against Patrick Moore after giving up the first 3 poses in this matchup, so the score on poses is 3-2 for Patrick at this point. Side triceps is next, and even though I can appreciate Patrick's incredible look with his full upper torso coming down into that tiny waist, my eyes are drawn more to Regan, who has a perfect Dorian-esque execution. He's got the superior lateral head of the triceps as well, which is a focal point of the pose after all. He carries more mass, and he still looks quite aesthetic too. I'm sure a lot of people will love Patrick's look here, but the way I see bodybuilding, the side triceps goes to Regan Grimes, no doubt. Abs and thighs, and this pose is difficult to judge because you have the more pronounced proportions and maybe slightly better conditioning with Patrick Moore, but you also have more mass, with class at the same time with Regan Grimes. I'm always a mass and conditioning guy, and I appreciate conditioning, especially when the difference is big. It's not the case here where Patrick is only slightly drier, if that, but Regan dominates with bigger and better thighs and even better abs if you ask me. In the abs and thighs pose, I prefer Regan Grimes way more, so my point goes to him in this pose. Last pose is the most muscular, and I was expecting Regan to win this pose and close the argument, but it doesn't really look like that. When they're fully flexed, Patrick presents much better detail and separation from the front, and his wider frame and superior outer arms are heavy arguments in favor of Patrick Moore. I still prefer Regan's lower body, but he may be holding just enough water to look softer than Patrick here, so even though Regan is technically the more muscular athlete here, when it comes to the most muscular pose, I find more arguments in favor of Patrick Moore, from the upper body dominance to the conditioning superiority, which makes his pose look a little bit more complete. So Patrick Moore wins the final pose, making the final score 4-4 on poses. So, in conclusion, it looks like we have a pretty contested matchup. Regan's arguments would be more mass and better flow in certain poses, while Patrick being more aesthetic and more conditioned are strong arguments to justify him winning this show. I'm not sure who I would have given this matchup to if I were a judge, but I could very well agree with the final result. Patrick clearly had enough advantages to make a legitimate case for the win, while Regan had his own advantages that could easily make someone lean in his direction. I don't think we can talk about any sort of robbery here. This was a very close and contested show, and honestly, I think both guys made a strong case for themselves. But ultimately, there can only be one winner, and unfortunately for Regan, he was the one who came up short this time. That being said, I think both guys deserve credit. Patrick gets his Olympia qualification after an absolutely insane season, while Regan once again showed why he has some of the most impressive genetics in bodybuilding. Hopefully he can use this loss as motivation, because I still think there's a lot more potential in that physique. So what do you guys think? Did Patrick deserve the win, or should Regan have taken the qualification? Was this the right decision, or would you have scored the poses differently? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the comparison, make sure to subscribe for more bodybuilding breakdowns. I'll see you in the next one.